Hello and welcome to Mags and Tilson, and welcome to part 5 of our 1971 Sportster XLCH Sparkling America scheme paint job. In this video, we'll be setting up our spray gun and mixing up some high build primer and spraying that on, and we'll go through some of the details of that, and we'll get into reading our paint ratio cups as well. So let's get going into part 5, and I hope you enjoy this, and we'll move on. So we have everything we need here in our Davidson spray gun kit. We have a regulator. I have 2 different size spray guns, and I have the needle for primer, thick primers, and another needle that I'll be using for paint and the clear coats only. And it has the filters and all the cleaning brushes that I'm going to need. So this is a nice Davidson spray kit. It's not the most expensive one, but it's a great spray kit. I've been using it for a lot of paint jobs for a lot of years. And over here I have the activator for our 730 primer, our 7330 DTM high solids primer that I'll be using. This is a high build primer that goes right over bare steel. That's what you're going to need, and this is going to be 4-to-1. I'll be mixing 4 parts of high build primer to 1 part of activator, and I'll show you how to read these cups, and they're all graduated. Okay, now I'll be using a ratio of 4-to-1, okay, right here. So we're going to stay with the 4. It's 4-to-1, so you go up to 4, say, and I'll bring my primer up to the 4, and then go 1 part of activator, which is going to bring it up to the next 4 right there. Okay, so it's 4-to-1, and in this case with the primer we'll be going 4-to-1. Okay, so we're going to bring it up to this point here. I'm going to fill up the ratio cup at 4-to-1, which means I have to follow the 4s. Okay, I'll bring the primer up to 4. That's 4 parts, which is right here. You'll see it, the 4, and then I'm going to use 1 part of activator, which is the next 4 right there on top. Okay, here's the primer with that 4, and we're going to bring the 1 part of activator to the next 4. So it's 4-to-1, just like it says here, 4-to-1. So what I'm doing here is changing out the needles to my spray gun. I took the 1.3 needle out, which is meant for clear coats and paint, and I'm going to replace that with a 1.8 needle, which is meant for thicker primers. So I'm going to go ahead and change that out and put my 1.8 needle and start spraying primer. Very important to do that. Okay, when I'm changing out from my 1.3 needle to my 1.8 primer needle, I have to change the heads here. So this one here is for my 1.3 needle, and in my kit here I have one here that is meant for the 1.8 primer needle. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that in. Okay, so that's all set. So you have to do that as well. So now we're set up to shoot primer. I have my 1.8 needle in, which is going to require the 1.8 head here for that needle, and taking out my 1.3, and I'm going to put that back where it belongs, right back in my kit here, and we'll continue on setting up our gun. Now I have my regulator, inline regulator, already attached to my spray gun right here, so I can adjust the PSI that's going into the gun, and I have an inline filter attached to my regulator, and it has to filter out any kind of moisture or any dirt or anything like that. And as you've seen me before, I drained out my air compressor tank and drained all the water and moisture out of that as well. So this is going to serve as extra protection from any moisture or any water from entering into my spray gun and getting mixed in with my paint. So you have to have an inline filter along with your regulator right here. Okay, I'll start mixing primer here, and get this process going. I have the filters here, and I have everything I need. I'm going to filter all my primer before I put it inside the spray gun, and so we'll get started with that, okay? I have everything set up over here. I have my tanks set up. I'll be doing 2 tanks today, and a rear fender and a front fender. Okay, we're going to bring everything in the high build primer, and I have the floor all wetted down, nice and clean and dust free as can possibly be. And I had put visqueen over the top of all my tables to keep the dust down. I don't want dust particles to fly from the wooden table up into my wet paint job, so I put a visqueen over the top of both tables, as you can see. And now I'll be wiping down the final wipe on my gas tanks and on my fenders, so I know that the surfaces are nice and clean. And then I'll begin mixing primer and start adding coats of primer, my high build primer. So this is where we're at right now. So let's go back to the mixing table and start mixing up our high build primer and our activator. And at this point in the video, I'd like to ask you to subscribe if you already haven't. It would really help out my channel and to bring forth more content just as this. And I would really appreciate that. Okay, we're going 4-to-1 with the high build primer. There's 4-to-1 on my ratio cup right here. So we're going to come right up to the 4 with the primer and then add 1 part of activator, which will bring it up to the next 4 right there. Right about there. Next, we're going to add our activator. Again, it's 4-to-1. So we have 4 parts of filler primer, and we're going to add 1 part of activator to that. We'll come up right to the 4 right there. I'm at 4 parts of filler primer and come up to 1 part of activator. So we'll come up to the next 4 right over next to it. Right there. And we'll just stir that up. Now, if I wanted to mix more filler primer in the 4-to-1 column, I would simply go up to 6 and then fill my primer up to 6 and then move over to the other column that says 6 and add 1 part of activator. So then I have more material to put into my spray gun, but you got to stay in the 4-to-1 column if your product tells you that you have to mix 4-to-1. But you can mix any amount you want within that 4-to-1 column, but you have to stay, say in my case I'm going up to 4, which is the amount of material that I want to put into my spray gun, and then I would go to the next 4. But if I wanted to add more, I would simply go to 6, say, and then I add 1 part of primer within that 6 and then go 6, 6, you know, and so on and so forth. Okay, next step, we're gonna put a clean filter into our paint cup, just like so. And then we're gonna pour the contents right to the filter, right through the filter into the paint cup. Okay, in case you're wondering how long you have from the time that you add your activator and your primer together, or say your activator and your paint together, you have over 1 hour, at least that. So you can take your sweet time when you're spray painting. You don't have to rush this thing, okay? Because you have at least an hour and even over an hour, okay? So you can take your time. If you wait too long and then the primer or the paints will start to harden up a little bit in your spray gun, and you'll have a harder time trying to clean out your spray gun after you're done. So don't rush when you do this type of a job. Just take your time and just go ahead and then spray down your fuel tanks or your car or whatever object that you're going to spray. Just take your sweet time, because you have over an hour, at least an hour, to go ahead and to spray paint anything you want. Okay, and now we'll get our air compressor going and we'll start spraying primer. Be right back. Okay, I want you to take note right here that right now I'm just spotting in all my repair areas, and I'm jumping around the fuel tank, going hodgepodge here and there. This is not how I use my arm and how I move my arm when I'm actually spraying on my paint and my clear coats, okay? When I do spray my paints and my clear coats on, my arm is moving in a much more controlled way than what I'm doing right now. Right now, I'm simply just jumping around the fuel tank, spotting in my repair areas here and there. Okay, as you can see, I'm not getting a lot of volume out of my spray gun here. This primer is very, very thick. And even though I have my primer needle in, it's a 1.8 needle in my spray gun, which is meant for high build primers, I'm still not getting a lot of volume out of my spray gun. But stick around towards the end of the video when I apply a second coat of primer on, that I made an adjustment to my spray gun, and you live and learn as you do these things. And so I'll show you what I did to get a lot more volume of this high build primer out of my spray gun. Of wet sanding the filler primer, and I'll be using 400 wet dry sandpaper here and a bucket of water. And this is a slow process. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I just wanted to, go through all the steps that I'm taking, each and every step that's going to lead up to putting on the paint and the clear coat and all the graphics. This is one of the preparations that I have to do, is start wet sanding all the filler primers. It's got to be smooth before I apply the paint. I'm going to go through all the fenders and the fuel tanks, and it's going to be a little bit of a process, so I'm not going to bore you with all of it, but just wanted to take you through just a couple of minutes of it so you know what's going on. So the filler primer is kind of rough. And you got to take it down to where it's nice and smooth. That's why I put on about 6 coats of high build primer, because I know I'll be wet sanding maybe 2 to 3 coats of it off. You have to take your time with it. You can't rush this. And you have to watch on the edges, you don't break through the primer like I did here on a few spots right here. It's not a big deal. You don't have to go back and reprime it again. It's just a few little spots, but you got to be careful of that. So when you're putting 5 or 6 coats of primer on there, it's really not that much when you consider that you'll be sanding about 2 to 3 coats of it off. And you want to have light pressure on your wet dry sandpaper and get a feel to what you're taking off here, because just like that you go right through the primer back into the bare metal again. So you really got to pay attention to what you're doing and kind of just slow down and take your time and make sure you don't blow right through your primer. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing here, so I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to finish off both of the fenders and both of my fuel tanks. So this is just one of the steps that I have to do on my way to a beautiful quality paint job. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, when I'm wet sanding this high build primer, I use a combination of about 600 wet dry and I use a 1,000 wet dry as well. And as I'm going across with the 600 wet dry over the high build primer, I'm trying to take all the little pits out of the primer. So what I do, I use this little flexible pad, and I use it like a little squeegee, and I just squeegee it right off, and I can see all the little pits in here while it's wet. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. And I have some pits in this high build primer here, and I'm going to take some 600 wet dry and just go over it. And I'm not digging too deep, with light pressure on it. And to see where I am, after that, I take my little flexible pad right here and just squeegee it right off, and I'm able to see any pits or any rough areas still left in the primer, because you want to get this primer down nice and smooth, and so the paint is going to lay down nice and flat, and you'll use less paint material and less clear coat if you have your primer all nice and sanded smooth with all the pits taken out of it and all the orange peel taken out of your high build primer. So that's what you really want to do, is take the orange peel out of your primer. So I use this flex pad and I squeegee all the water off, and it dries it instantly, and I'm able to see where I'm at, and if I have to do more sanding, then I will, and if not, if it's perfectly smooth, then I just move on. I see some areas right here. I still have to wet sand down a little bit, and this is the area that you're going to see when the fender is put back on the bike again. So you want to really pay attention from about this area all the way down past the tail light, and on both sides, because that's what you're going to see. The seat is going to be on about right in this area right here and all the way forward, but this is the area that you really want to concentrate on, and on both sides of the fender, and about halfway down to the taillight area. That's got to be super smooth and looking really nice. And but I pay attention to everything really, and because I want a quality paint job, and as I said before, it's all in the preparation, guys. It's 100% in the preparation. Painting's the easy part, and putting the clear coat on and all that, I mean, that's the fun part, but all the hard work is in the preparation. Well, guys, I have all the body work and all the high build primer on both of the tanks and on the front fender, and I have the rear fender sitting on the ground over there, and that's all done. But what happened here is that after I thought I had the body work complete, and I sprayed on my coat of my high build primer, well, the high build primer revealed a lot more waves in the gas tanks, and a little bit here on the front fender as well. So I spent the night last night. I had to skim coat both sides of both tanks again, and do the body filler work on both sides of because this body filler, once it's sprayed on, makes the tank it really reveals a lot of little waves in your fuel tank or any dings or anything like that. And I thought I had them all filled in and had them all flat, but when I put this high build primer on, it revealed a lot more than I thought was in here. So last night I came out in the garage, and I had to redo it again and put a a skim coat of Bondo across both sides of the fuel tanks. And I had to block sand all the tanks in again, both of them. So I got up early in the morning after a big cup of coffee, came out here, and I started block sanding all the Bondo off again. And you know what? It turned out beautiful now. It's so nice and flat. It's so straight. And I'm looking at the high build primer now at all angles, and I don't see anything. So it turned out really nice. Okay, now I'll get you in here. The high build primer, it comes out of your gun kind of rough. And I did a little experiment, because the first time I was laying down this high build primer, I had a difficult time trying to get it to spray. I have the primer needle in and have the primer head. I couldn't get this high build primer to spray in a nice even spray, and it was coming out blotchy. All right, last night before I went to bed, I had a brainstorm, and I thought I was going to take this restrictive air regulator out and just use this air filter. The air filter right here, it just filters out any moisture in my air tank and my air lines and keeps out any dirt. And I just use this instead. I use my filter in the end of my spray gun here. I kept the air regulator off, and I went to my air tank because I needed more pressure. So I cranked the pressure up to about 60 pounds instead of 35 pounds. I went to about 60 pounds instead. And it made a huge difference. A huge difference. And all that high build primer going across my workpieces here, it did a much better job, and sprayed on this high build primer much more evenly going across my workpieces here. So that's another trick that I learned along the way, and I'm always learning new things. So I was telling you guys before, I'm about 85% self-taught when it comes to painting and doing all my body work. And last night I had that brainstorm to take that regulator out and just run a filter instead of the regulator on my spray gun, and that was a huge difference. And you can see, I'm going to run my camera across. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, how even this high build primer turned out. And I block sanded everything in nice and straight, and I have the sides of my gas tank laser straight. Now they had waves coming through here, especially down on the rim, which all Sportster tanks have, right here, right out of the factory, right out of the seam down here. But I block sanded everything nice and straight, and I had an area on this tank was the same way. Right on this side of the tank, I had a lot of waves coming through it, a lot of dips. And even though I block sanded it once before, put the high build primer on the first time, and the high build primer, after it dried, it revealed a lot more body work I had to do. So I just, started to do the job all over again and did the body work again. I put the filler in on the whole side of the fuel tank, and then I just blocked the whole thing in and really, really straight. And it revealed a dip on top of the fuel tank as well, and I fixed that as well. A dip right over here that I didn't see before. Every Sportster front fender that I ever gotten has a little ding right here, and that is from through the years when all you guys start to lock your bikes up and you take off that little padlock, it slips out of your hand and drops on top of the fender and puts a dent in it. And every fender that I've gotten so far, from a XLCH or an XLH, they all have a little ding right in this area, right where the lock goes into the frame. And sometimes it slips out of your hand and falls on your fender and leaves a ding in there. And I had to fix that I didn't see before. And the high build primer just made everything just kind of pop out. And the front fender right here was dipped, and I thought I had it blocked pretty straight. But again, the high build primer, it just revealed that I had a good dip in here, and I was not about to accept that for sure. So I redid the body work here, and I blocked it in again, and now it's perfectly straight. So I'm looking at the body work in the bright sunlight over here in the garage, and I'm looking at it all different angles. And I'm going to tell you, It's not like the first time where I seen all kinds of waves. Now it looks like it's laser straight. So when I get this sanded down nice and smooth and get it ready for my paint and then apply the clear coat, it's really going to be really nice. So I'm really happy with it now. So I just had to keep going at it. It was very, very frustrating. I got to tell you that. It was very, very frustrating. So let's get back to the spray gun over here. You want to make sure, in case you guys have never painted before, you want to make sure that you match your 1.3, which is a needle for your paints and your clear coats. You got to match that to the head right here. So each spray gun kit comes with a 1.3 needle that is meant for your paints and your clear coats and has a matching head to it. Okay, just like this. And the kit also has a different head and a different needle, which I have in the gun right now, that is meant for high build primers and things like that. So if you have anything thicker, you have to use a 1.8, or I think they have a 2.02 or something like that you could use. But this kit has a 1.8, and that's meant for the high build primers and all that. But I learned a new trick along the way here. This restrictive regulator was giving me a lot of problems with the high build primers, so I just took it off and I left it off. And like I said, I just used an inline filter instead and left the regulator off. And I increased my air pressure on my air tank at 60 pounds instead of 35 pounds. So I increased it to 60 pounds. And that made a world of difference, let me tell you. A world of difference. So I'm all done now. I have the guns cleaned up. So make sure, in case you've never done this before, after each paint job, you got to take apart your gun. You take apart everything, okay? And you got to clean everything. Okay, and you got to clean out the heads. Everything comes off here. Show you what I'm talking about. And you got to take that off. Make sure you take it off. And you got to clean it all out. You got to clean everything. You got to take the whole gun apart, and you have to clean all that primer or all that paint or all that clear out of your guns, out of your spray guns. And every part in your spray gun, everything comes apart. You have to unscrew everything, take it all apart, and run cheaper lacquer thinner through all of it. Don't use the expensive lacquer thinner you are going to reduce your expensive paints with. Just go to the store and buy the cheaper lacquer thinner, and you use that to clean out your guns with, okay? And clean out all your cans and everything. So, you know, I like to get a complete kit with the 1.3 needles that are used for your paints and your clear coats, and they have the 1.8 needles that are meant for your thicker high build primers and things like that. They have all the cleaning brushes in here, and they come with a smaller paint gun to do smaller paint jobs. But I tried this gun before, and I don't like it. It doesn't work right, so I use my big gun for even the little jobs because it does a great job. So this is my go-to gun right here, and it turned out to be a nice kit. I forgot what I paid for it at the time, but it wasn't that much money, and it's paid for itself over and over and over again. So you know what? I made this paint series for you guys who haven't painted before and would like some of the basic tips to get started to do your own paint jobs. So if I can do it, you can do it too. And like I said, I'm about 85% self-taught when it comes to body work and paint work. I've been doing it a long time on my cars, on my sports cars, and on my motorcycles. But then again, I'm always learning along the way too. Just like I learned about taking off the regulator and just go with an inline filter so I can spray the high build primers the right way. So I had a nice even spray going across when I was spraying on the gas tanks, and it looks so much better. But I'm so happy that it turned out so straight, because both of these tanks were giving me fits. They were full of waves. I had dings in them, and they were stripped down to the bare steel, but that's when you reveal a lot of things going on with all the waves in your steel from the factory, or from little accidents, little dings in there and stuff like that. And like I said, the first time that I did the block sanding and I put the body filler on, did my block sanding, applied my high build primer, that's when I start to look at it. And that high build primer, it revealed I had to do part 2, put another skim coat of body filler in there to go across all those waves in the tank. And then after that, block sand it as straight as I possibly could, and go ahead and apply some more of that high build primer across all my repair work. And now it looks laser straight. I'm so happy with it. All right, now my next step is to wet sand all this high build primer so it's nice and smooth. And I'll probably start out with about 600 grit wet dry sandpaper, to about 800 wet dry, and then to about 1,000, until this is nice and smooth, and then it's ready for the paint and the clear coat. Or I should say, it'll be ready for the paint, and after I paint it, and then I'll apply all my graphics, and then hit it with the clear coat after that, and this paint job is over. It's been a long one. It's been a frustrating one, just trying to get the body work so straight. But it's finally there now, so I'm really happy with it. Okay, there is one thing that I want to add at the end of this video, and I want to caution you guys, please don't put any more than 60 pounds PSI through your spray guns like I did to get that high build primer to spray in even coats through my gun. So it's recommended for your clear coats and your paints at about 35 PSI going through, and that works really great on my gun. Now, some of the newer spray guns, you could spray about 15 pounds PSI, and that drastically cuts down on all that overspray. So again, let me caution you guys, do not put too much PSI through your spray guns, because you could burst that can, and that's a dangerous thing to do, and you'll have paint just blown all over the place. So definitely do not put too much PSI through your spray guns, okay? And go with the factory recommended, which is about, in my case, about 35 pounds of PSI. And you can adjust it from there. So you want to atomize your paints and things like that. And you can go a little bit more than that, or you can drop it down more. But I want to caution you, just do not put too much pressure through your spray gun, and keep that pressure at the factory recommended amount. So next week, we're going to get into the fun part of spraying our birch white. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and apply our 1971 Sportster XL CH Sparkling America, all the different graphics. And then after that, we're going to clear coat over the whole thing. And we'll get into that as well. And then this paint job and this paint series is going to be over, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about how to do paint jobs. And if you guys have never done it before, you learn some of the basic steps on how to do a beautiful, high-quality, professional paint job that's going to last you in years to come. So thank you again for watching Max and Tillerson. Until then, you guys take good care of yourselves and ride safe. Stay tuned, and we'll get into the paint and graphics and clear coats.